Hello everyone, welcome to the third edition on the How-To series for Madden NFL 18, and today we will be looking at creating your own franchise. Now, we mentioned in the introduction and the home screen tour video that franchise was a very complex mode. And in previous editions of Madden NFL, I would totally not even do this. Because there's so many things that you can do in franchise. There are so many things that you have the ability to do. Signing and re-signing players, cutting players, roster management, getting free agents, dealing with injuries. If you're an owner, setting prices for things such as tickets, merchandise, food prices at the stadium. Rebuilding your stadium, all those things. There's so much you can do. However, it's not accessible yet. Well, in Madden NFL 18, they have introduced something called Simple Season. And we will get to that. But in order to get to that, we must create a franchise. This guide will walk you through how to create your own franchise with outside assistance. It will even walk you through which options to set. Somebody asked me on the Audio Games forum, how did I memorize all this? Well, I didn't memorize all this. Amber, my girlfriend here, sat down with me the night before I did the first video, read me every option, and dictated to me from the screen of the game what was going to be seen. I've compiled that into a document, and that's what I'm going to be going off of. So if you follow this, there's not going to be any mistakes, but make sure when you listen to this to give kudos to Amber, because without her I couldn't have been able to do it. Anyways, let's get started. We're at the top left of the home screen. I'm going to go to the right 3 times. First right is Ultimate Team. Second right is Long Shot. Third right, Franchise. I'm going to hit A. Okay. We're sitting on Franchise right now. And when you first start Madden NFL 18, you'll be presented with 2 options. Cloud, or connected franchise, and offline franchise. I already have a franchise running. Actually, I have 2 franchises. So for this one, I have a third option, which is continue. I don't want to continue. I want to go down twice. You all will be down once. But down twice, the first option you all will see is I went down to get to it, is connected franchise or online. The second one is offline. Connected franchise. Connected franchise is also known as cloud franchise. Now you all see why I misspoke there. Anyways, we are sitting on the option that we want, which is offline. So I'm going to hit A. Now, when you first start, you will be presented with an option called Create New. I already have franchises, so I am placed on Recent Plays. This will bring up a list of my current franchises and their saves from the last one played. Okay, correction. That one will just bring up the one that I played recently. I'm going to go to the right once. This is Create New. This is the option that I want. If you're creating one for the first time, this is where you will start. So I'm going to hit A. Just as a side note, if you are wanting to load a franchise and you've went to the right once, down from that will be the list of franchises that you have played, starting from the most recent. But we have selected Create New, and we are sitting on one more screen. before you will hear a very familiar voice if you have listened to Madden videos so far. And if you have not, he'll be familiar to you by the end of these videos, I promise. But first, we have an option to select. What type of roster do we want to use? The choices are preseason and currently active. Choosing one of these at this point really doesn't matter, because what we're going to set later on is going to take care of all that for you. And we'll get to that later. So just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to hit A. We will hear the voice of Larry Ridley out of Nashville, Tennessee. So take it away, Mr. Ridley.
Select the team you want to join. Don't worry, you'll be able to choose the role you plan in just a second.
All right, now we're sitting on the Start with Recommended Settings button. Oh, sorry about that. I got ahead of myself. We're at the team selection screen. This is your standard team selection screen, and it's set to your favorite team. Mine's the Titans. I'm going to stick with them. But there are 31 other teams here that you could go with. So for now, just for me, I'm going to hit the A button to continue. And also, they're organized alphabetically via team name, not by state, because you have several teams in sometimes 2 teams per state, sometimes 3 teams per state. California has the Rams, the Chargers, Oakland, and San Francisco. It has 4 teams. Which to me, I find is a little ridiculous. Anyway, you're on the team selection screen. We're going to go ahead and press A to move on. Remember, they are alphabetized by team name, not by state name. Going on.
Start your season with recommended settings. If you wish to change roles or adjust options, use the tiles on the right.
Thank you, Larry. He gave us a really good clue a decent clue as to what is available here. He said start your season with recommended. I don't need to repeat all of that, but basically what we're sitting on right now is the Start with Recommended Settings button. We could hit A. We run into problems if we did that, because there is a ton of stuff that you have to do before you even play your first game. Everything from training to roster, everything, all that sort of thing. I want to talk a little bit. I want to visit the first option, and I went to the right once. This is Starting Point. I'm going to go into Starting Point really quick. I hit the A button. And what you will find in here are 3 options. The default option is Start at Regular Season. The regular season in the NFL is 17 weeks, 16 games, with a bye week. Every team gets a bye week at differing times of the season. That is why there's 17 weeks. We're going to go down one. Start at preseason. Preseason is the 4 weeks before the regular season. This is the time where you will play with the full team. And by the way, at preseason, now apparently you have 93 players instead of the traditional, I think it was 75 originally. Fortunately, in the game, it's still 75 players. But you will have a chance to test those players. The game will control substitutions. And winning or losing these games does not affect your standings in the NFL. So it might be prudent for first-time starters if you start at the preseason. The other option to the right, and I do not recommend this option, but I'm showing it to you anyway so that you know what's here, is Start at Fantasy Draft. For the love of all that is good, don't do it. You will be lost in 10 seconds or less, because it is not accessible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up once. That puts us at start at regular season. That is the default. You can go down one again and choose start at preseason, but I'm going to hit A. Now, we are placed back on the starting point option. To the left one is start with recommended settings. We're not done yet. We go down one. This is change role. We're going to change a role, but it is a good time to discuss the options that are available. The first option is coach. That is the default option. And as a coach, you control everything from play calls to practices to setting your game plan. What are your objectives? We'll get to objectives here in a little bit once we're done. Coaches have the power to, they control depth chart. They have a lot of power. Plus, they have an unlimited budget if you play as a coach, because the coach doesn't necessarily have to answer to the front office. However, the potential for screw-ups as a coach does exist, because if you do not do well, you can be fired by the owner. By default, the owner is the existing owner. And for the Titans, that is Eric Fowler, I do believe. He is the owner. The next option is player. This lets you take control of either a limited number, you have a limited number of options, an existing player on your team's roster, or you can create a player. If you create a player, you have a limited number of options. If you choose an existing player, you have all the positions. You could even be the kicker if you wanted to. Yep. That's one way to do your season, is play as the kicker, and only as the kicker. So those are your roles. I'm actually going to go by this, because there really isn't anything we need to change here. I'm going to go down one more time. League options. League options, this is important. Let's go in here. We have things to adjust. The first option that you will find yourself on, is skill level. There are several skill levels here. I mentioned these in detail in the previous video, which was navigating Play Now Live, so I'm not really going to go into them again. But just note that by default, it is set to Pro. We do not want that. And that is a no-no. We want to go left once to Rookie. Left once turns that to Rookie. If you would have went to the right, you would have been at All Pro. To the right again would have been All Madden, and then back to Rookie again. Let's go down to option 2. Game speed is normal. We don't want to change this. There are several options here. If you felt that the game was too slow, you could change it. Or if you wanted to slow it down, you could go to the left and change it to slow, I believe it is. And there's fast, very fast, slow, or very slow, slow, and then normal, I believe is the list of options. But we're going to leave it alone. Game style. When you first set up Madden for the first time, you will be given the option to choose a game style. The default is arcade. My default is simulation because it was set. Amber actually set this up to surprise me by getting a bunch of players that I was interested in. But she set it to simulation. Simulation is the traditional NFL style. Arcade will probably be a fun one for a lot of you because that opens the game up. The rules are a little more relaxed, and you'll probably make bigger plays that way. I like the NFL style, so I'm not going to mess with it, but to the left once is arcade, and to the right once should be competitive. Competitive is what the online head-to-head matchup is set to. But for now, I'm going to leave this alone, but you know that it's here. League type. This is who can play in your league. Coaches and owners, and coaches only, and then all. I'm going to leave that alone because this one really doesn't affect us as much as some of the other options will. If we were playing in a connected franchise, and a connected franchise is where you can invite your friends to join you, then this option would have some impact. And so, you could set who could play, defined by which role. I'm going to go down one. This is Instant Starter. Okay. Instant Starter is on. This basically says that all user players will start. If you change the role to player. This really doesn't affect you if your role is coach. So, you can either set it to on or off. I'll leave it on. I really don't want to change it, but right turns it off, left turns it back on. Some of these options wrap. Game speed and game style are two examples. Skill level's another one. This one, some of these are just like little light switches, on and off. Trade deadline. In the National Football League, teams are allowed to trade players back and forth, either for other players or draft picks. The same is true with Madden. This determines whether or not all trades will stop at week 9. That's all this does. You don't have to change this one. But I do believe in option 1 or 2 down from here we will have to worry about. But I'll leave this one on. You could change it to off, and that would let you trade up and probably up until the Super Bowl. Trading would not be... You could trade any time during the season or even the off season. So, we'll leave it on. Trade type. Determines what types of trades can be done. This one affects us too. Because what we do not want is we do not want the computer trying to come along and get players from us. Enable all is the first option. Disabled, which is what we want to do for this. Go to the right once is disabled. To the right one again is human trade. This makes it, and this is really cool, if you do trade, you can offer trades to everybody else. They can't offer trades to you. I'm going to go to the left once and disable it because I do not want any trades. Coach firing. Determines whether or not a coach can be fired for poor performance. Default setting is CPU only. If you have a bad season, you do not want your coach fired. Leave it to CPU only. Don't change it. Nine is the salary cap. Back in the late 90s, the NFL decided we need to put limits on how many players a team can get, because there were some teams back in the 90s that, and the 80s and beyond, that were getting all these good players while other teams did not have a chance, simply because they were not rich enough to do it. Well, they invented the salary cap. The disadvantage to the salary cap is if you have players that are good, that are negotiated for, and you don't have enough saved up in your salary cap to maintain those players, you must cut them. Also, if you are the type of person who goes to get players, you can only get players that you have cap room for. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to go to the right once. A note about this option. Once you have set it for this franchise. You cannot change it. It is off permanently. I'm going to leave. It only affects, as well, it only affects user teams. This option only affects user teams. The computer, believe it or not, and I know this because in Madden 17 anyways, players were cut by the computer due to salary cap issues. So I like this off so that it does not affect the user team at all. 10 is relocation settings. Teams can indeed relocate. The Los Angeles Chargers were the San Diego Chargers. The Los Angeles Rams were, in the 90s, the St. Louis Rams. And before that, they were Los Angeles. So teams can jump around. They can relocate. We want this disabled. I'm going to go to the left once to disable. You don't want the computer trying to relocate you, unless you want them to. There are several options. All teams can relocate. Only users can relocate. Normal basically means that it will tell you when you can relocate and not take any action. You want that set to disable. Injuries, enable or disable injuries. This is enabled. Realistically, people can get hurt. One of my players on my Titans / Black Knights franchise, Kenny Britt, is out for the season with a broken femur. Go figure. That just sounds painful, just talking about it. So injuries do happen. I'm going to leave that on. You can turn it off. Just go to the right ones. And we'll turn it back on. The next option is pre-existing injury. You want players to start out with real-life pre-existing injuries. That is set to on by default. The right turns it off. Left goes back to on. I'm going to leave it the way it is. I like the realism here. Practice squad stealing. Oh my goodness. This one is worse than having your ship stolen on Mariani. Because this basically lets you go to other people's practice squads. They're formed at the end of the preseason. Practice squad can consist of 10 players. Does not matter their position. However, they must, at the very maximum, have only 1 year of NFL experience. They can be rookies. They can be on their second season, but any player above that second season cannot go on the practice squad. But anyways, this lets you go and find a practice squad player that you like, and you can steal them. And there's nothing the computer can do about it. Consequently, the computer can do it to you, or another user can do it to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Except, of course, disabling this option. I'm going to turn this off to disable, because I do not want that happening to me, and I'm sure you all don't want that happening to you either. It just sounds wrong, but it's legal. Player progression frequency. This is for the CPU only. Determines when their players progress. The default is every 4 weeks, but I like the option to the right of that. That's at the end of the season. I want my players to progress. I want them to not progress every 4 weeks. I set that to off, or to at the end of the season. So I'm going to go on. We have a new set of options here. Clock management options. The quarter length here is set to 6 minutes. You can set this all the way up to 15 minutes if you want. Don't recommend that. Yes, it will give you a taste of what a real football game is like, but if you are quick and you score a lot of points, I promise you, you will be doing this game for about 3 to 4 hours straight. So we got 6. Wraps back to 1. It goes in 1 minute increments. from 6 to 15, then back to 1 to 6. I am actually going to increase it twice to 8 minutes. I like that setting. Consequentially, a note about Play Now Live. By default, they have changed the... By default, it's set to 5 minutes, not 6. Yep. That is the... When they updated the game recently, it is set to 5 minutes. So that's another reason why Play Now Live is so messed up. We're going to go on now. I've set this option. Accelerated clock. My friends, this option will drive you nuts. Disable it. If this option's turned on, you can turn off the play clock, though I have always found that even if you turn off the play clock will still tick down. So don't worry about it. Just disable it. The next option down determines how long the play clock is. The default is 20 seconds. But if you turned off accelerated play clock, guess what? You can't play this anyway. You can't change that anyway. Okay, that's interesting. I was just told, and I'm actually sure that Amber is right about this, I was just told that accelerated clock actually is more like a fast forward button. So, in essence, what this does is the minimum play clock time is set to 20 seconds. If the accelerated play clock is off, you can't change this. I'm going left and right, and it's not changing. But what accelerated does is say, okay, fast forward after each play to the minimum time, which is 20 seconds. That time can be adjusted. You could set it down to 10 seconds, and that will drive you stir crazy. I disabled it though, so this option does not count. Aha! We're down to the user team help options. And I said to you all that there was an option here that's going to make our lives 25 times easier than what they would be if we didn't change this option. And we're sitting on that option right now. Season experience. Full control gives you the full franchise experience. Everything from training to managing injuries to free agency to all of those things that we discussed earlier. By default, you get full control. That enables everything. Custom, to the right of that, lets you disable. Some will let you enable or disable what you want to do. Now we could go through here because I have the options listed. We could go through here and enable or disable the ones that we want or don't want. But I have a better option. Let's go to the right one more time. Disable. Or other simple season disables. Or automates. I shouldn't say it disables. But it automates every other option we're about to go through. And we have to go through them because there's a couple of more options that we need to set before we're ready to move on. But now that we have set it to automate, let's see everything that it automates. Weekly training. You want to train your players? You don't have to. Automatically does it. Trades and free agency. You don't have to do that either. Automated. Off-season free agent bidding. That can be fun, it can be costly, and you don't have to do it. Injury management. Remember, we've talked about it. Players can get injured. by default, you have the choice of deciding whether or not they come back early or not. You don't have to do that either. Taken care of. Preseason cut days. You want to have the responsibility of cutting all those players that you feel didn't make it. The computer will do that. Contract negotiations. Guess what? You don't have to do that either. Set to auto. Scout college players. Another thing I forgot to mention that coaches and owners have the power to do is to scout for college players. Well, guess what? You don't have to do that either. League advancement. You play a game, big week will advance. Now on though, you play a game, the league automatically advances for you. So these nine options that we just went through, because of one selection, which was the option before all these 9, are now automated. You do not have to do any of them. But we're not done yet. We're almost done. The light is going brighter at the end of the tunnel, my friends. We're almost there. Team settings is where we are now. You won't know this because that's a visual heading, but this is the section that we're on, and I'm going to tell you, there were commissioner settings. That was all of the setting injuries and trades and all those things. Clock management, which was the play clock and accelerated user team help, which is what we just set. And now we are on the last set, which is the team settings. So option number 1, tutorial pop-ups. These are very good if you're a visual first-time player because they give you little tips. Well, they're not good for us. To the right one disables it. Bye-bye. Regress players. This is different than player progression. Way back up in leagues, commissioner settings, we had player progression. Player progression is done by the CPU for their players. This is our players. By default, this is set to off. We can automate this, our job further, by going to the left once. That turns it to CPU. The CPU will progress our players. Fill roster. This is a good option because this will fill your roster by free agents in positions that need to be filled, in essence. Well, because the computer will now do free agency, I'm going to go to the left once to set that to on. By default, both those previous options are off. So to turn this one off and the one above it on, you go to the left once. We are at the bottom. That was the last option we need to set. Let's hit B or circle to back out of this. All right. Now, we are back on the Start with Recommended Settings button. Remember how I told you all earlier that when you're on starting point and you set that, it takes you back to starting point. Every other thing that you change in here, including these options, will put you back on Start with Recommended Settings. We are ready. We are ready to start. Let's hit the A button, and if we did everything correctly, we will hear the now familiar voice, hopefully, of Larry Ridley. Here we go.
Your season starts now.
Dead to rights. Just to let you all know, this is loading. And there is no indicator of when you will be done. So we just need to wait. But it's creating all 32 teams with your settings and everything. So this takes a while. Nope, still not done yet. Don't you wish now the NFL was a little bit smaller? Man, come on, San Diego or LA, San Diego, get over to LA. What's taking y'all so long? Man, they're still not over. They're still not done yet. Yeah, oh yeah, like literally everything that we just automated, that's what's happening right now. The league's being created, players are being negotiated, the draft is going on. It's crazy. The indicator. Yeah. Okay. I pressed up, I got the rumble. This, we have 3 options here. Set season goal, play game, advance week. And no more options. What's this season goal thing? Well, let's go into it because we're going to set one. How good do you think your team will do? It's very average. You can't go below 7 wins, by the way. Wait, can you? No, you can't. You can go up to 11 wins if you want to. And then you can go bigger than 11 wins. Make the playoffs, make divisional round, make conference championship, or make the Super Bowl. I'm going to be a little brave. 7 wins. I think I could do 7 wins. Let's go to 10 wins. I think that's a fairly modest goal for a first-time user, first-time player. I'm going to go up 1, or excuse me, down 1, to the commit option. This has a fancy name like commit season objective or something like that, but we'll just call it the commit button. Hit A. We're back now, and we have 2 options. What did I say they were earlier? Start game and advance week. We don't want to advance the week, but we are going to take a look at the start game options. Yes, there are, sadly, more options. I know. So many options. You will play a game from this franchise. Let's go into here. Start game. Okay? The first option you land on is Play the Moments. Play the Moments was introduced in Madden NFL 17. It's not faster than simulating. Because for the record, you can simulate the whole dabbling thing just by advancing the week. But what this does let you do is play not every third down, but third down situations, the 2-minute drill, red zone situations. Red zone is basically inside the opponent's 20. You can play those situations. If you're on defense, the red zone is inside your own 20, so you may be called upon with a moment to play defense there. You may be called upon to stop a third down. While moments is not a complete breakdown, and the disadvantage is that you do not have full control over the game, it's really cool because you have the opportunity, based on how you do in your moments, to change the course of the game. For example, you're watching your moment, and you can tell by the crowd noise, especially if you know it's a home or an away game, and there are ways to tell that. One way is by the introduction. Like I said, in the next video, we're going to show you that. But one way is by the introduction. So let's say you are down by a certain amount of points. Now, the thing is with moments is that you don't know how much you're down by unless the game happens to tell you. So let's say you're down by, say, a field goal. You get the ball at your own 20. You can choose to let the computer play it, or by default, you get to get thrown into it. If you go down and score a touchdown, you've basically rewritten that moment. because the computer may not do it. It may not score a touchdown. It may not kick a field goal. So that's moments. To the right of that, haha, play full game. This is the option most likely you will want to play with. This plays every snap. Offense, defense, special teams. Special teams, field goals, kickoffs, returns. Punts, those things. That's the second option. I'm going to go back to the left once. We're going to go down. Whoop. Ah, yes. Okay, so we're going to go down again. Play. I think this is offensive snaps. This just gives you the ball when you're on offense. The computer will play the defense of your team and the offense and defense of the other team. And to the left of that, or down from that, is play defensive snaps, which is the opposite of offense. Choosing this option, or any of these options, will take you to the ready screen, and then you can hit the A button to continue. But I'm not going to hit the A button to continue. I'm going to back out of this. This brings me back to start game. And that, my friends, is how to create your own franchise. Step by step and mile by mile, we have traveled to Mordor. No, not to Mordor, but it must have felt like it. Hopefully this gives you the idea and the steps needed to create your own franchise without any sighted assistance. In the next video, we will play a game from this franchise, and I will give you all tips on how to succeed in your first ever NFL matchup. Until then, good night, everybody.